Hi everyone and welcome to the video. Today I'll be talking about how to read data from a potentiometer and a joystick. So a potentiometer is a 3-pin device where its internal resistance is manipulated by a knob. And if you understand how a potentiometer works, you'll understand how a joystick works, because a joystick consists of two potentiometers, one for the x-axis and one for the y-axis. So first I'll be talking about two different codes that give us the same output for the potentiometer, and then I'll move on to the joystick. So here we have the variable value, which isn't assigned a number, and then pin A3 for analog pin 3. And then here in this function we have serial begin 9600. 9600 is the bits per second, and you have to be very careful with what specific serial monitor option you have, because there are certain serial monitor numbers. So the serial monitor is used to display any data that you're reading off the Arduino. So it's good for troubleshooting purposes and just to verify that your code works and so forth. And then here in the loop function, we assigned the variable value to the value that's being read in the analog pin A3. So it says analog read the pin A3, and then here is serial print. I want the serial monitor to print exactly value, the colon, and then some space, okay? And then after that, I want to print the actual value, the value that the variable is storing. And then you see we have a print ln. What this means is that it's going to print the value, colon, space, and then it's going to print this value in the same row, and then it's going to move on to the next row. And then it's in regards to the function, it's going to go back up and run again from line 10 to 12. So before we upload this, we do want to make sure that, again, our settings are correct. So the programmer should be Arduino ISP. Your board, at least from what I'm using, is an Arduino Uno, and then the port, once you connect your Arduino, it might just be on serial port, so you have to manually adjust it to COM3 or whatever COM number is available for communication number. And then once you select that, we want to upload the code. And for my purposes, I don't want to save it, but just make sure you save it for future purposes in case you want to. So now that we uploaded the code, you see the value. And as I move the potentiometer, you notice that the values vary, right? And so right here we have the 96 baud rate. The lowest one is 300 and the maximum is 2 million. Be aware that the baud rate is, the higher the baud rate, the more information you're reading per second. So you want to be careful with that, because if you're reading, like for example here, we have a potentiometer. If I put it to 200 million, 2 million, not 200 million, 2 million, it would still work perfectly fine. It would still get the job done. But you want to make sure that when it comes to microcontrollers, you don't use more than what you have to. So in other words, why would I want to use 30 variables when I can only use 10, right? And so you have to be careful about that. So the more tasks your microcontroller is performing, the more power it's going to consume, and the slower it's going to do so, because the microcontroller is different from a microprocessor, which for example is your computer, your laptop, which is used for multitasking, and a microcontroller isn't meant for multitasking. So now we take a look at this pair code, code B, and instead of using the monitor 9600, we're going to use 1152. These are the two common ones I use, and I've been using for the past couple years for a variety of projects. So then we move on to the loop function, and you realize that, okay, we have the same thing as before, value, colon, and then the space. So whatever's inside the quotation marks is going to display exactly what's inside of the quotation marks inside the serial monitor. And then now, instead of assigning a variable the value of analog pin 3, we're going to directly put this on the argument for the print line of the serial monitor. And if you notice, I don't have a, I just have a 3. Here I have an A3, here I have a 3. They both work perfectly fine. It's just a matter of preference. So if we upload this code, okay, we take a look that now we're gonna get garbage. Why? Because we have to adjust the 9600 to 1152. Once we do this, you see that the values we're getting are exactly the same. Minimum is 0 and maximum is 1023. So the value 0 represents 0 volts and the value 1023 represents 5 volts. So if you were to measure this with a multimeter, those are the values, the voltage values that you would be reading. Okay, so now we'll be moving on to the joystick. So here for the joystick, I have a variable X and Y. For the X axis and Y axis, we want to make sure that we use 9600. Okay, and again, this is just for my preference. You could use 1152 or 2 million. It's your preference. And then we're going to read the X axis part of the joystick here we're going to read the X axis value for analog pin 4, and we're going to read the Y axis value in analog pin 3. Then what we're going to do is we're going to print the value for the X axis, print a space, and then print a value for the Y axis. Okay, so from there, if we upload this, we got to change this back to 9600. Okay. Okay, so then now we move on to the next code. And again, we have the same baud rate for the serial monitor. And then instead of assigning the values to the variables, we're not going to include any variables, and we're going to directly use the values from the analog pins and directly displayed on the serial monitor. So if we upload this, and for the shortcut I use Control U. So it's uploading done. Just for simplicity, as long as you take the first step and understand how to connect and how to program an Arduino to communicate with a potentiometer and a joystick, you'll be able to understand how to implement an LED, which was covered in my previous video. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe because I release videos weekly. Thanks.